There's a story that's adapted into Yiddish from a well-known Buddhist folktale. It's about a rabbi, of course, and a student who are en route from one shtetl to another. It's a Friday afternoon in early spring, and they're walking quickly in order to arrive before Shabbat, although the snows are melting and the roads are full of puddles and mud. And they come across a stately carriage at some point, and its wheels are stuck deep in the mud, and there's a huge puddle of filthy water surrounding it. There's a uniformed driver and a servant, and they're busy gathering branches and putting them under the wheels for traction. And then the horses are there, and they're pulling and straining, and everything is covered in muddy filth. And clearly, they're all doing all that they can possibly do. And yet, leading out of this carriage is the passenger who's exquisitely dressed, clearly the owner of the carriage, and she's shouting at the men working, insisting that they're too slow, to stop being so lazy. And she starts screaming, "Why are you not beating the horses? Beat the horses until they're bleeding. Get this carriage moving, you lousy good-for-nothings." Suddenly she sees the rabbi and the student walking there on the side of the road. And she says, "You there." And it occurs to her, if she's not in the carriage, it would be lighter and they could move it more quickly. And she says, "Come across and carry me across the mud into the grass." So the rabbi goes over and he gives her his back, and she climbs on, and he carries her over to the grass. He puts her down, and immediately she's yelling even more than before to the servants to work faster, to push harder. She starts throwing pebbles at them, screaming to beat the horses harder. And the rabbi and the student go on their way. They continue in silence for another mile, 2 miles. They're about to go into the next town, and the student stops and says, "Rabbi, I don't get it. What an awful person she was. She didn't even say thank you to you. And she was treating her driver and the servant and the horses absolutely horrible. Why in the world did you carry her across the mud? Why did you help her?" The rabbi looked at the student. "I put her down a mile, 2 miles back. Why are you still carrying her?" Don't we all sometimes carry our past burdens with us that we probably should have put down and let go of a long time ago? And as we set out into this new year, we ask ourselves, what baggage are we still holding on to? Isn't our attention at times, maybe often, replaying memory videos of bygone insults and continue to repeat to ourselves, "How could she? How dare he?" and the like? Our imaginations frequently screen scenes from the past playing out differently. If only I'd done such and such, or done this or that instead. What if? Indeed, what are we unable or reluctant to let go of? In fact, most of us are like that disciple. We spend a lot of our minds focused, a lot of our time, our energy, our emotional capacity, carrying things from the past with us into the present. Unfortunately, it's not only the past that preoccupies us. Most of us are more or less obsessed also with what's going to happen in the future, too. Mark Twain once wrote, "Most of the worst things in my life never even happened." I would guess that most of us are often worrying about all the calamities we imagine could happen to our loved ones or to ourselves. And it's true that our worries sometimes are not merely theoretical. They're perhaps even possible, or God forbid, likely, or about some difficult eventuality. We worry about the test results as we await a call from the doctor, about our health and the health of our loved ones, about whomever is traveling, about our children and grandchildren and the challenges they're coping with, and so much more. And along with all this worry, we're also anxious about what's coming next. Climate change, politics, our finances, the economy, what's going to happen with the world, about all the things that might go wrong, that we need a backup plan, that we need a backup plan for a backup plan for. Or we reside in the future aboard a time machine of wishful thinking, picturing how great it would be if only some minor miracle would happen. We say we're looking forward to something, to the arrival of some future event. We say that we can't wait until that vacation or whatever arrives, or when my ship comes in. But we never really, ever, really know what the future holds, do we? Snuffleupagus, Tushy, graham crackers. For example, I bet you didn't see that coming, did you? It's amazing, actually, how much of our lives we spend dwelling on the past that's gone or imagining the future that may or may not be, while ignoring, for the most part, what is going on right now in the present moment here where we are. And yet, we all know now is all we have. And so the big challenge for us is how to live fully right here, right now. It's not so easy to do, apparently. Being present in the moment is maybe especially difficult today when we have so many distractions, so many monumental worries about the future because of, just throwing some things out there, the situation in Israel, which I'll be talking about tomorrow morning, about climate change, about AI, which I'll be talking about on Yom Kippur. You name it, there's plenty to distract us. But in fact, living your present reality consciously was not ever easy. Not for us when we were younger and less encumbered by worries and technology, nor certainly for our ancestors long ago. If we look, for example, at this morning's Torah portion that we just read, the reading began with the birth of Isaac to Abraham and Sarah. At first, they, like most new parents, are absolutely present. They number each day after the birth until the bris on the 8th day. And they laugh with delight, realizing what a miracle child they've been given at age 100. And the child grows. And the Torah mentions that the child grows, which suggests that someone, the parents, are really noticing this amazing process as it is happening. Abraham and Sarah are living very much in the moment. Unsurprisingly, though, they resume their old habits of thought. Having waited for decades and decades for a child of their own, they often surely escaped into imagining and dreaming about their future family. So eventually, as Sarah is in the moment watching her child play with his half-brother Ishmael, her imagination takes her away from the then and there and into that wormhole of the past and the future. She remembers the disappointment and frustration, unable to conceive. She returns to the time she gave Hagar, her handmaiden, to Abraham, hoping to create a sense of family that way. And she recalls how the pain and jealousy were just too much to bear. And then her mind leaps to the future. She herself is remarkably old to be a new mother. And what happens when she will die? Won't Ishmael inherit something? Ishmael, after all, not Isaac, is the firstborn. And what will become of her son? And what will happen then? So, poor Hagar and Ishmael are banished by Sarah and Abraham. Hagar carries her young son in the heat through the desert. The water runs out. So, of course, she's worried about what will be. She imagines her child will soon die of thirst and puts him under a bush and goes off so she won't have to watch the unbearable reality she's already played out in her mind with grieving horror. She bursts into tears. Somehow those tears bring her back to the moment at hand. You can imagine that kind of calm comes over her. She hears the desert silence in those moments between her sobs. All is still. The text says that God hears the cry of the child in that silence, in that moment. And it is then, too, that Hagar can perceive a divine presence. She knows that in that silence, God hears the cry of the child, quote, where he is. And she opens her eyes to really look at what is happening around her at that moment. And immediately she sees there's been a well of water right there nearby all along. She gets water, Ishmael and she drink, and they go on. At the end of this morning's reading, Phicol and Avimelech are worried about a possible future rivalry with Abraham. But Abraham helps them focus on the source of the tension that exists right now, a disputed well of water. They talk about it, they solve it very simply. And in tomorrow's reading, on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, Abraham gives ultimate expression to what it means to be completely in the moment, completely in the present, with all of one's heart, soul, and body. He responds to God's call in that state of fully being by exclaiming, Hineni, here I am. Moses is similarly called by God at the burning bush, and he too exclaims, Hineni. Jacob says, Hineni, when God calls to him as well in the night. This idea of Hineni is a spontaneous response to total, full perception of the present moment. It's impulsive, before thought, an astonished, I am here now, fully attentive, all of me, with all that I am and all that I can be. You could say that Hineni is the Hebrew word for the modern term that you're all probably familiar with, mindfulness, right? Mindfulness, according to John Kabat-Zinn, who integrated ideas of Zen Buddhist meditation techniques into our modern medical healing system through the clinic that he started in the 70s. I'm sure you're familiar with it, called MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction. According to him, mindfulness is, quote, awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. It doesn't sound all that difficult, right? I mean, to remain aware that you're paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, withholding judgment. But if it was so easy, we wouldn't be spending so much of our lives in the past or the future instead of actually living our lives fully in the present. If it was so easy, those Hineni moments in the Torah or in our own lives wouldn't be so rare or pass so quickly. Can we be more mindful in this new year? Can we put down the burdens of the past instead of carrying them along with us? Can we be less anxious and worried? Can we be more grounded in where we are and not feel as hectically busy or overwhelmed or stressed out by all that goes around us demanding our attention? Can we be what John Kabat-Zinn suggests, less of a human doing than a human being? Because humans universally struggle to cope with the multiple and simultaneous challenges of living, many cultures and religions offer ways to help us achieve a kind of presence, this mindfulness. Probably most of you have tried yoga or meditation. Who knows what some of you were doing in the 60s? I don't think I want to know. But as your rabbi, I want to point out that your Jewish culture is a profound guide and help for you to live more mindfully and more fully. Let's take today, for one example, Rosh Hashanah. Isn't it interesting that on the day that we start the clock all over again, Rosh Hashanah, the new year, we read this story that I mentioned earlier, whose theme about the importance of opening our eyes to the present moment is so central. And isn't it interesting that our high holiday services highlight the vulnerability and the trepidation we all feel about the future? Who shall live, who shall die, who by sword, who by beast, who shall be tranquil and who troubled? And then we go to the beach for tashlich and we throw away out all the dust of the past, casting away the baggage from the last year to unburden ourselves and make a fresh start now. And the shofar, when we do hear it, is meant to shock you, sort of like a in Buddhist meditation shock you into being fully aware of that present moment. The theme of the entire holiday season is tshuva, return. Return to where? To the radical present moment where you can find yourself, which is where God is. Here's another example of how your familiar Jewish culture can help you be more hineni, more present, to live more mindfully. The idea of blessings, brachot. Yes, saying hamotzi and borei pri hagafen and lighting the candles on Shabbat all create a wonderful and nice feeling of togetherness. They serve as kind of a toast to start a holiday meal, but they are also so much more than that and applicable to so many other moments of our being. There are specific blessings for seeing the ocean, hearing thunder, glimpsing a rainbow, for eating a donut or an apple, for drinking water or fine scotch, for smelling fruit or spices or fragrant plants like rosemary, for seeing people who are different or those who are particularly beautiful, for having successfully used the toilet. There is a blessing for hearing good news and for hearing bad news, for seeing that long-lost friend that you promised yourself to reconnect with during this new year, and the catch-all shehechianu blessing for being aware of the presence of a special event happening right now. Saying brachot is a wonderfully useful technique, which can be done anywhere at any time, either very publicly or very privately. They're meant to get you to just stop and be, to bring you into a state of mindful awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment. Blessings, in fact, deepen the experience of mindfulness beyond the mind. They connect us to the physical reality of you and of the world around you, and with the spiritual reality that is all around and in you, integrating the body and the soul in that awareness. Blessings cultivate your sense of wonder, augment your capacity for appreciation, and grow your gratitude, tuning you into holiness now. Relatedly, tefillah, Jewish prayer, is a technique for mindfulness that most of you have easy access to. Yes, of course, I'm trying to recruit you to come to Minyan and to Shabbat and holiday services. But in terms of mindfulness, across almost all religions and cultures, prayer in general is probably the number one tool for being mindful, for training the mind to settle down into a sense of presence and awareness of the moment. Traditionally, we Jews pray 3 times a day at set times, often in the same space where we gather with at least 10 people. We use a book, an old-fashioned book with no apps popping up all the time trying to monetize your attention with eye candy. Mostly the words are the same for each service, which is similar in form to how a meditation mantra works. It doesn't matter really if you know the Hebrew or not, in terms of the prayer's ability to bring your mind into focus, into the calm and presence. I encourage you to give it a try over a stretch of a couple of weeks, just to develop a sense of routine in your life that includes a time for prayer. Many of our core Jewish values also cultivate mindfulness. Tzedakah, for example, and gemilut chasadim, deeds of loving kindness. They require you to be aware of what's going on around you, to see the people around you and recognize what their needs are. You have to be aware of your own resources and talents to think what you can do to help that very specific someone else right there next to you. And of course, when you give, when you help, usually the most important part of the giving is really just that you cared, that you were really there and fully present for someone else. And you're going to realize you were there for yourself too. Finally, and I hope that it's obvious, Shabbat is the ultimate instrument of mindfulness. As an idea, an institution, a practice, Shabbat brings you into the now, into the here. You can develop a routine that you love for Shabbat, so you don't need to reinvent it each week, just a routine that you automatically fall into and joyously do. The traditional routine includes rituals like candle lighting and challah and kiddush, but also think about things like watching the sunset on Friday, and counting the stars as Shabbat goes out on Saturday night, staying put in between them and enjoying your surroundings, talking with people, tasting food already prepared, prayer, sleep, appreciating nature just as it is. Shabbat is our invitation into the always now, and it opens special possibilities for us to be in the perpetual moment, to sense the wonder of it, to feel the depth of fully being that is possible when we can pay full attention, be fully aware, be fully present, just be. With this new year 5784 beginning today, now on Shabbat, I hope that this entire year can be a year for you, for all of us, a year of mindfulness, a year of being there, of being present for ourselves and for one another. Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova.